When we look at these famous, popular, widely used language tests, we realize that there's a disconnect between these tests and the insights which are based on the analysis of English in the world context, which means that these tests do not reflect the use of English in this international context. Um, these tests do not represent at all the English varieties which are spoken and used in contact situations, which means the varieties which have developed as a result of the contact of English with other languages, for example, in outer and expanding circle countries. So these tests do not include different varieties of English when they are developed, and they are based only on the native varieties of English. For example, if our test is based on, let's say, standard English, if a test uses standard English as the norm, and the same test is used in a context where the norm is not the standard English but a local variety of English, such a test will become invalid in the new context, in the context where the norm is a local variety of English. However, the test developers do not consider this situation, do not consider this fact that English is now being used in large number of different contexts, and that we do have now locally developed norms for the use of English. Um, the because of the large number of varieties that we have of English, the test developed in one context may become invalid for another context. It's not only about the tests which are based on standard English as the norm. There is a likelihood that perhaps a test which is developed in Pakistan, a test of English which is developed in Pakistan, may not be appropriate enough to be used in another non-native English-speaking country. Because of the change that we see in the use of English in different contexts, because of this large number of varieties of English that we have today, what is correct in one context may be incorrect in another context. So, the correctness of language test items is now very difficult to establish or to use consistently. What is correct in one context may be incorrect in another context. And what is wrong in one context may be considered right in another context. Let me give you an example to explain this point. We have in many of the outer circle countries, the use of s, that is making uncountable nouns plural, is quite common. For example, words like work, equipment, they are often used as plurals. So if we have a test item which uses the word equipment, and one has to identify the correct use of the word equipment, somebody who has learned English in an outer circle context will make a selection which will be very different from the selection made by a native speaker of English or somebody who's learned English in a native English speaking country. So let's take a look at these sentences. Suppose the test taker has to choose the correct sentence from the given list, and we have sentences like, our company is buying some new equipment, our company is buying a new equipment, our company is buying some new equipments, and our company is buying 3 new equipments. Which of these, in your opinion, is the correct sentence? Many of the Pakistanis probably will go for 3 as the correct sentence, because we often see people using the plural of equipment. It is very common use that we have of the word, the way the word equipment is used in Pakistan. And you might have observed very proficient users of English using the plural of equipment. So in an outer circle context, number 3 will be correct, whereas in a native English context, number 1 will be correct. So if a test which is developed by native English speaking test developers, or which uses standard English as the norm, this test will lose its validity when it is used in an outer circle context, because it is very likely that in the outer circle context, the variety which is used is based on local norms. So in this way, we see that we need to work on developing language tests which also accommodate the world English perspective.